Hi, welcome to 2026. It's going to be better than 2025. At least that's my prediction. Let me tell you why, because Trump's already done a few horrifying things this year, but I will note that the lens I'm looking at this in doesn't see them as being as bad as they had been before. Because the more disorganized I see this administration get, the less scared of them I are. So even though they're going to do some horrifying things, I'm calling this wild swings. It's not working, so they're swinging harder and losing control. Wild swings. That's what happens when authoritarians are falling apart. I've talked about this a little bit in my other content, but there's this structure of what happens as you're resisting effectively authoritarianism. First, there are these pieces where we start to realize there's authoritarianism. Then we start to organize and talk to each other about it. That happens on our own time frame. Each of us gets there different times. Some people were already there last January. Some people have been working on this all since November the year before. But the fact of the matter is, when people realize that their nation's being overtaken by something so destructive, they tend to start to push back a little bit, and then more, and then they coordinate and it gets stronger. So first they notice it, then they organize, then we leave the subjective, it's all about me frame, and turn into there is a movement. There's an escalation against the authoritarian. And either it fails and the authoritarian wins that round, or the authoritarians support internally crumbles and they have to transition away from this because they can't, it's not viable anymore. That's what I think we're starting to watch. I would honestly be very surprised if by the end of summer we even still have Trump as a president, partially because of his health, but also partially because this is the normal way of removing a president who has gone so far off the rails. Now, the US government is sick in a lot of ways, and we have a lot to do with it, though. So I don't think the right answer right now is to do what I did in 2025, which was track every single flash in the pan that Trump did. Try to become aware of the deep consequences of every stupid, cruel, inhumane act. That didn't help. I couldn't do anything about a lot of it. And at the same time, I was just weighing myself down with that baggage. So this is where I think we need to make a change for the better. We need to make a smarter use of our time in 2026 to minimize the amount of time that we're going to have to spend resisting this fool. And when I say, I am treating all this as if Trump himself is somehow the villain, but Trump is a symptom. Okay, he's not the cause. The filling of his I almost want to call the cabinet his cast because they're all ready for TV, but they're not ready for the job. So I feel like they're more of a cast than they actually are a cabinet. There's a couple of people that are on the other side of this. Marco Rubio is, in fact, more cabinet than cast. He's trash. We don't deserve his disappointment, but we have him, and I would not call him cast. I also wouldn't really call him TV ready, but what I want to talk with you about is where this goes because there is a solid way for it to go. There is a place, or not a place, I'm sorry, there is a path where we put much more, well, frankly, convenient support into our resistance. We don't do all of our time on it and we don't burn ourselves as much because that wasn't as effective. But we do show up where it's important. And that means maybe we weren't giving our time and energy to the right ideas the first time. Here's my suggestion. Okay, depending on how much time in a week you have to push back, then I have a suggestion for you have 5 minutes right now and never again. I have a suggestion for 15 minutes a week. And I have a suggestion for more than a half hour a week. I hope you have more than a half hour a week. But recognizing that if you got a bunch of kids and no time and multiple jobs, I don't want you to spend more time on this. You're who we're fighting for. I want you to just be okay. So this is how we're going to get you there. All right. What is the primary place where the U.S. always responds against federal overreach? Who does it? Got any ideas? Okay, the short answer is it's the states. It's obviously the states. Throughout history, it's always been the states. State power is the way you resist federal overreach. And you may notice that we're called the United States, not the White House. The United States is the first article of the Constitution. The executive branch is the second branch. But the first article is the representation of the United States in the legislature. Okay, Congress is Article 1. And that's the representation of states. Again, not the White House. So as the second class article it is, the executive branch is less important than the states in a lot of ways because the states have so much power that would have to come together to coordinate and support a federal government. We've had problems for a long time. They are not new with Trump. Some of them were a little bit more hidden. Some of them were not getting the kind of outrage they deserved. Deportations are down under Trump, and they have been higher in the past. So recognize that if this government seems like a nightmare, it's because they are frequently spectacular nightmares. But that nightmare existed for populations in the US for a long time. So we should fix all of this. We're not just looking to get Trump out of the pool. We want this problem gone. We should be supporting We the People, and We the People is bigger than the citizenry. It's the people, well, there's a lot of theories about how to interpret We the People. My favorite, it's the people that intend to engage with the government. That's We the People. So if you're here, whether you're a citizen or not, I think there's a way you can be assisting without that much additional effort, and I'd like to share that with you. If you have 5 minutes this week, I need you to go and learn who your state financial officers are. I'm in Massachusetts. I can go to mass.gov. And if you watch my interview with Gabby Goldstein of statefutures.org, she's the founder of State Futures, where they essentially assist and train legislators to become legislators. So when you're elected, you know how to win an election, but you don't know how to be a legislator necessarily. She's training those legislators, those freshman legislators, how to be very, very effective. Templates for how you get something done, examples of agendas and process workflows so they understand the way you accomplish different tasks, connections to other legislators around the US who are interested in the same thing so that we make multi-state legislation that is really powerful against Trump. So this kind of work is extraordinary. It started as a very few number of legislators in beginning of last year, but it had surged up to over 700 of them by the end of the year. And that was mostly through word of mouth and the sharing of their awesome newsletter. Again, State Futures has an awesome newsletter, statefutures.org. I'll put a link in there. I love this charity. I think it's the most strategic way we fix our problems. So if you have 5 minutes, go learn who your state financial officer is. And if you have a few, go learn all their names. But just knowing their names, you're going to start noticing that they're in the news a lot. Also, their news is about you. It's practical. You'll find it interesting the more you pay attention. If you had 15 minutes a week, then I want you to consider signing up for all of the newsletters of your state financial officers and any other officers you care about. But the state financial officers, get their newsletters, route them to the same folder in your inbox, and then once a week, spend 15 minutes reviewing the headlines. Dive in as much as you want, but make sure you know, did they touch something that's a sore spot for you? Because if you're aware of a criticism, your neighbor might not be aware of the same criticism on that act. It's important you pay attention so that you can pipe up when you're the viewpoint that's missing from that conversation. Also, this has the passive impact of revealing that anytime you pipe up, that means you were paying attention. It changes the shape of the world for an officer to realize how many people are paying attention. This happens in good and bad ways. Bad officers will probably shudder if they realize how many people are starting to pay attention. Good officers will be emboldened by it. If they're having to pick, is this going to be the hard fight or the next thing? But then they have a big population celebrating their good actions as a comptroller, as a treasurer. There's a good chance they're going to say, you know what, it's not going to be a this or that. It's going to be a hard fight here. It's going to be a hard fight there, which means I'm going to come in loud and proud and make sure they know you're going to fight every inch through here, because they have that kind of power. They are controlling, again, trillions. So 15 minutes, get their newsletters, be aware of what's going on there. Sensitization at the treasurer and financial officer level for 5 minutes. 15 minutes is being aware of what they're doing. And then if you have more than a half hour a week to spend on this, you can do something a lot more fun. You can do something a lot more impactful too. And that would be start to integrate this information into your socialization. Do you spend time with people in a regular fashion? Like, do I go out and sit on my street like between 3 and 5 in the afternoon on weekends when a lot of the kids on my street are playing in the street and the parents come out and sit and talk with us? Sorry, I'm throwing the microphone all over the place. Sitting out there with friends and family, that's one way. Are you studying with a bunch of classmates? That's an opportunity to socialize. Do you go to a bar and grill with friends from a sports team or with coworkers? That's an opportunity to socialize. But where you do these, I think you should start sharing the successes of your state financial officers with these other people. Share your discontent with them if you're seeing that, because that kind of awareness is something that all of you have a very direct input into.
you can change how likely that state officer stays in office. You can also celebrate it, which means that state officer has social media posts that show that the constituents care and are thankful and are supportive, which is powerful fuel for public-minded state officers. So I hope you see how this whole picture starts to begin to be a strength for the state officers, but more importantly, that the state officers themselves are arguably the biggest cure we have for Trump. And they have already been a major thorn in his side administratively for all of 2025. So if you didn't know who to thank in 2025 for the fact that we are this far along in 2026 and probably going to win, then you start with your state attorneys general. They moved a mountain. They were ready for this. I cannot express the gratitude. It's too big. It's too big for words. Should have sent a poet, which I guess would have still been words. Should have sent an artist. But your state attorneys general did the big lifting. Your state governors have been great. They're not all great, but some of them have really done very impressive, very intelligent resistance to the federal government without also being rude to them. And I'm not saying everybody has to avoid being rude. I'm just saying I'm impressed when somebody effectively and diplomatically resists. Anyway, after these two, then the attorneys general really are number one. The governors, do they even belong in this list? But the state the state financial officers, that's really your second most powerful unit here, because the attorneys general were putting out a fire before it started. But then the state financial officers were putting out the fires that did start, putting out fires that have been hidden from us for a while and taking our money away from corrupt and unethical organizations that were frankly surviving on handouts from the government. So I hope that this gives you a little bit of enthusiasm, because it's going to work. It's going to work. That's my sincere statement about the matter here. It's always possible it won't, but I don't think that's where we're heading. I think this is going to work. And the way that we get there fastest is by making the actual cure, the state financial officers, as powerful as we can, supporting them when they're doing a good job, and getting visible when we're angry at them. So it's good work. I think they can do it, but I think they can do it better if we do it with them. So let's do it together. Let's walk each other home.